Hello and welcome back to another episode of Shut Up and Enjoy. This is a first for us, our third episode in 1 week. A lot of content coming this week and only more throughout the rest of July with San Diego Comic-Con coming at the end of this month, so we'll do a whole wrap-up of everything there. But the topic for this episode is Star Wars The Acolyte Episode 7, the penultimate episode of Season 1 of this series. And I think we both have some thoughts on it.
We do, yes.
And this may be the last episode of this podcast, depending on how funny it gets. But as usual, we will turn it over to Dante to give us a little synopsis.
Yes, there will be no bloodshed. At least,
maybe.
Visible bloodshed. Yeah. Might be some internal.
Yeah.
But anyway, Episode 7, Choice, which is the dichotomy of Destiny, which was Episode 3, another flashback.
Yes.
So it's all right there. 16 years earlier, the four Jedi discover the Coven while investigating a potential vergence in the Force on Brendok, which could create life. The Jedi Council decides that the twins are too old and should be left with the Coven, despite Osha's wish to become a Jedi. Coral stokes May's anger over Osha's decision, leading to May accidentally starting the fire. The results for the twins' M count shows their Force sensitivity, indicates that they were artificially created with a single consciousness split into two bodies. Torben, eager to return to Coruscant, sees this as proof of the vergence and rushes to retrieve the girls. Sol follows and the pair confront the Coven before Kalnaka and Indara arrive. Sol kills Anasaya when she attempts to use her power. The witches possess Kalnaka and use him to attack Torben and Sol, until Indara overpowers them. Sol is unable to save both May and Osha from the burning fortress and chooses to save Osha. As they return to Coruscant, Indara decides to blame the incident on May's fire and not tell the council about Sol's actions so he can train Osha as his Padawan. Oh yeah,
a lot happened. First and foremost, the big thing that we saw here was more awesome lightsaber combat. I think we can agree on that.
That we can. Yes.
I was surprised to see that Torben had a yellow blade. His demeanor did not match that of a Jedi Sentinel, but again, still young, still a Padawan.
Yes.
Force works in mysterious ways.
That it does.
And that will come back later in this episode. But yeah, great lightsaber combat with them. The episode opens, which I did kind of roll my eyes at this of they're using a metal detector to find the Force.
It was
Kalnaka's using a metal detector to find the Force.
It seemed very odd.
Again, insert right here. That's not how the Force works. So I'll grant the people who have the more naysayers of this episode, I will grant them that was tacky and corny, and
then they were taking grass clippings.
They were taking plant clippings, I think, to analyze its Force potential, where it's not a true synthetic or naturally. It's not a sentient thing where they can calculate an M count.
Mm-hmm.
But I think they were taking samples to, in some other way, measure the Force's imbuance of
it provided life.
Yeah, because
it provided life to the planet because there was an accident and the planet was.
And the accident that they were referring to, that Indara mentions of the hyperspace accident 100 years ago, I actually just remembered the name that I tried to trip over my own feet from last episode. It is the Legacy Run disaster where the Nihil detonated the Legacy Run ship, which threw pieces across a bunch of sectors and quadrants out of hyperspace, pulled it out using gravity well, I think it was. And it ended up that Brendok was a victim as a planet of the entire disaster, which allegedly, I guess, eliminated all life on the planet.
Right.
And then now the Jedi are here investigating why the planet and how the planet can sustain life again after a cataclysmic event only 100 years prior.
Right.
So that's originally why they were there, thinking it was also completely uninhabited.
Mm-hmm.
But then, as you say, we see discovering the twins and the tree and all of that stuff, and then we see flashbacks and we go forward through there. So that's first and foremost to mention in this episode, which I really like how they're pulling from the High Republic books.
Right.
It's really good. They're doing it in a way that's subtle, that still gives us, like, people who want to then go find, well, what happened? They start Googling, oh shit, there's all of these books. And I'm like, so I do really appreciate how they're bringing that in.
And they're not heavy-handed with it. So
exactly.
They're just throwing it in there.
There's nice little seasoning. Well, S&P is the way for me.
Breadcrumbs.
I don't know if we've seen many other Virgins in the Force. Virginci,
Virgincenses. I can't recall any.
So I don't know if that's new for this or if that is just another, like, deep dive into the lore, like Cortosis, for instance.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure our listeners will let us know in the comments for sure.
Oh, yes, definitely. So I wonder if that's new that they made just for this episode and this whole thing.
Well, is it that... Did Qui-Gon think that Anakin was a virgin?
I don't know. Was he a virgin? Who was his father? There was no father. It was just me. I carried him to term. He might have thought it, but I don't know if the word was ever used.
Was it explicitly said?
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Again, I could be wrong. Let us know.
Let us know down in the comments.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But so that's kind of the whole setup for the episode and the whole context of it, which I really liked. It was good to see more of Indara, Torben, and Kalnaka.
Yes.
It was very good. That's been one thing that's been rubbing me the wrong way about this series, is that we have these three people and we've gotten nothing.
Yes.
For all intents and purposes, we've gotten nothing.
Mm-hmm.
We found out how Torben got scars. We found out
he was getting his ass whipped.
He was getting he held himself against the Wookiee. He held himself, and against the strength too. When he got, like, his head, like, his face curb stomped into the wall.
Yeah.
He was single-handedly holding back Kalnaka's strength. So, like, there's more. There's more to him than a whiny, bratty little child.
Right.
And if you say whiny, bratty children are what's wrong with Star Wars, shut the fuck up. Watch episode 2. He's holding me back. I should be stronger and power. Fuck your whole thing.
Yes.
So, shut up. Go to Tashi Station. Yeah. Star Wars has been built around whiny, bratty children. Shut up.
From day one. Yes.
Yes. So what did you think of that first kind of instance leading up to when we first, like, the first repeat of footage from episode 3 when Sol was looking at him from the tree? So that first chunk of the episode.
It was interesting to see it from his point of view, seeing how he was, he did not expect to have other sentient life on this planet. Mm-hmm. So to him, it was a surprise, a shock. And then, of course, as he sees them, not only that, he sees them using the Force.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, at that point, so we're already here looking to see if there's a virgins in the Force.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hell, now it's people here actually using the Force. Oh, I'm intrigued.
Yes.
I got to see what's going on.
And it's kids, too.
And it's
not just some old stage or something.
Yes.
Which also, this episode then gives us, because we now know that they didn't think there was life, like sentient life on the planet, we now know why they were camping out for weeks and why they had been there for weeks versus before it was like...
Y'all just hanging out? Y'all just waiting for the right time? Right time to strike?
Yeah. So it lends that context that we had been previously missing. It was also interesting to see like those scenes where, again, from his point of view, where he's scaling the side of the pyramid and then he's on the catwalks and all of that stuff where it's
Just creeping around.
yeah, I like the new perspective so far. I'm trying to organize my notes because a lot of these were just, I have a whole page of notes and a lot of them were just like word vomit and everything.
Wait. So it took us about 24 episodes of the podcast before we actually came up with some notes?
We don't do that here. We don't do that.
No.
We don't do that. I got some Star Trek-y vibes a little bit with like the prime directive of like we can't interfere on all of this stuff. Which some fans might be like, oh, they're getting lazy, they're just copying Star Trek. Okay, Android's copying Apple and Apple's copying Android. Again, it's fine. It's sci-fi.
The whole thing is based on Dune, which is based on something else.
Yes.
Based on something else.
Yes. When they start testing the kids, or even before they get to testing the kids, when we see the Jedi come in and Kalnaka hacking the elevator, so it wasn't just a graceful, like, we're wandering into the village and seeing this culture and this force sense. It was brute force.
Yeah, we got to get in
with.
there.
Like, Kalnaka's like, and I was like, bud, splice it and get in. And then actually seeing what Mother Anaseo did to Torben. That was cool.
Pretty damn cool.
And I will say, all in all, good acting on his part.
Yes.
Lines could have been written a little better.
I think we're going to have that.
Yeah. With essentially anything.
Yeah.
The one place where it kind of got me was that he almost rushed through his lines a little bit. Was like, we look Coruscant. I wish that was enunciated a little better, but take it what you will. Young actor, up and coming, is known for yeeting himself out a window in Game of Thrones. Like, interesting that Tommen now becomes Torben. That's his name in Game of Thrones. But I think that was very good acting of the... You felt the witch's presence in his mind.
Yes,
and
the isolation that he had from everything else.
And cutting off, and they did a really good job cinematically. Sure.
The cinematography.
With the cinematography, to really show that isolation. It was the same area. They darkened everything. More breath was shown.
Yes.
Which is something that we kind of commented on last time, which is, it's the witches are fine, but the Jedi are like chilled air breathing. But then you saw that even more inside his own mind. He's isolated, he's cold. It's not just the temperature cold, it's an emotional coldness too that he's feeling.
An actual fear.
Yes. And
he was trapped.
And you bought that. You bought what he was selling, which I thought was really cool. So props to him. Very good. But then afterwards, once they came back and started testing, I did think it was funny. It was like, this won't hurt. Ow! Come on. But that he was still involved with the testing, even though he was still a wee little Padawan. And then the testing of the girls, you saw May's defiance right from the start. She didn't want any part of it. They commented on the tattoo. And then Osha came, and it was interesting where, coming from an education background, validity and reliability of any assessment, where the validity is, does the test what it says it's going to test? So the test was the same one. It assessed the force and everything. It assessed the force aptitude in the kids, but the reliability of Osha's results were not very high because she had that scaffolding from the soul. And it wasn't until Torben gave the results of, no, these are the exact same.
Yeah.
It's not like humans where we have like a 99% or shared DNA with with chimpanzees and stuff. It was, no, these are
Exactly.
You put one on the Xerox machine and pressed copy.
Yes.
Like that's what it was. That even Indara was like, we gotta. She wasn't taking it seriously. She was very like, okay, so calm your emotions,
relax, bruh.
And it was almost as if Endara was kind of acting as Soul's master in addition to Torben. So like, was Endara a master and Soul a knight at that point?
It was definitely
a hierarchical.
Yes, it was definitely a weird,
and that's why you don't have a Padawan.
Yeah. All that was
very pulling rank.
Yeah, and like poking at him a little bit.
Yeah.
And almost as if she knew that the way he feels about things and his thoughts and actions would lead him down this path. So she was trying to just curb that a little bit. Just relax, and you want her to be
force sensitive.
Yeah, you want all of this,
and
it's all about what you want.
Yeah, it's not what she wants, or
what the council wants, what we want.
Very emotionally driven,
right.
Versus Indara's tendencies of, let's report back to the council. We have to go see. We can't do anything until we hear back from the council. And then you see Vernestra of like, we're not telling the council anything.
Yeah.
So I wonder if they didn't play nice in the same sandbox. Growing up. But yeah, so all of that, and meanwhile Kelnaka is just off Wookieing in the distance.
Yeah.
I still can't get over the fact that every one of those Jedi Knight belts are like the Gucci colors. So it looks like they're all wearing Gucci belts, like the green and the red and the gold. Every time I see it, it immediately takes me out. So costume designers, please do a little better. Please.
Oh man, stop it.
Yeah. A knock I had against the episode, especially coming back to the CGI, was when when they parted ways, like, we'll go north, you go south, you go east. The CGI on Soul's speeder bike was crap. It was like, you could, when he pulled up and stopped, you could see the whole thing was moving like a figurine, and then stopped, and then there was a jump in the frame where you could see him then getting off. Guys, you can do better on that. You don't really have an excuse to not have that type of CGI like clean and clear at this point. You don't. You've been doing it since the 70s.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Unless this was a part of the whole, when the CG went on strike, CG people went on strike, and perhaps this was called politics. Maybe they needed the CGI for another show or another movie. They're all under.
That's not how CGI.
That's not how CGI works.
You don't have a quantitative, a set firm amount of CGI. You get 3 CGI and you get 5 CGI. That's not how the CGI works.
Well, that's what they said on She-Hulk, so that's what I was going with. Remember, Kevin?
And they're wrong.
He said you're wrong.
Yeah, I did. I did. Yeah.
Oh man, I love it.
I said you're all wrong. So before we go more and more, so this is essentially the first half of the episode. One of the longer episodes too. I was really expecting it to end kind of like Return of the King. There's like 19 places where I thought it was going to end. What do you think of the first half of the episode? And I really want to dive into this because talking earlier, it was clear we both have different opinions on this episode. And there could have been stuff, again, I really liked the episode, but I might have missed some of the stuff that you picked up on, or vice versa. So first half.
I think when we had our little discussion earlier, and I was saying that I felt that this episode was akin to episode 3, where
Mm-hmm.
the flashback episode, where it wasn't one of the best or highest
Mm-hmm.
thought of episodes. I kind of felt this was in that same vein. Now, could it have been because I watched it late last night? Did I need to watch it again a second time to get a good feel of
Mm-hmm.
all that was happening? But kind of like we're talking about here, in that first half of the show, it was essentially a rehash of the things that we had already seen, or things we already knew, even though it was coming from a different point of view. It
Yes.
was coming from another point of view, and
Which
so
isn't
that's what.
a new style. It has
Right.
been done before
Right.
in
Absolutely.
Hollywood, and it's
Absolutely.
been done well, and it's been done
Not so well.
horrifically.
Yeah. I think if I was looking at it as and this might go into the overall full encompassing of the episode, did it move the story forward? I don't know if it did, or if it just filled in some blanks that we already had. Does that necessarily move the story forward, or does that necessarily just fill in those blanks? And I think once we get to how we've been pretty much for every episode this season, well, we'll see what happens next week. Next week is the final episode of the season. So,
But this week we also did get some of that. We'll see what happens.
Mhm.
Where we see, not necessarily we'll see what happens, but we saw what happened.
yes.
And that then gives a lot more credence to May's motivation and her anger, where you see Saul trying to save both of them and then made a choice.
Yes. Oh, the name of the episode? He said the thing.
Saul made a choice.
He said the thing.
And,
It's the
and
name of the
also,
episode.
look at that second to last.
Yes, we are.
So it gives more credence to the anger May felt, and also now knowing that they are two halves of the same side of a coin.
Mhm.
And I worded that expression very carefully, because if they are a split consciousness of the vergence in the force that created life, they are insanely powerful.
Yep.
They need to be a constant duality, and it's almost like they're almost like nexus beings of the force,
Yes.
where they always have to be. There always has to be that driving spark of the force.
So the question comes in at that point, if they are, or I guess we know now that they are, two sides of the same coin.
Mhm.
They were created from the same thing, as they figured out, as the Jedi figured out. Could it be that now that we're what we saw in previous weeks, where
Mhm.
now Osha is with Kamir and May is with Saul, could the changes that we saw, the flip flop that we saw,
Mhm.
be, well, that's the way it was going to be anyway, because one has to be this way and one has to be the other way.
Or that was the destiny originally imparted on.
You said the other thing.
I said the thing again. Because Indara does mention, like, what you did, like, you can't tell the council everything because you've already reshaped her destiny once. How much more can you impact her destiny?
Yeah.
Like, it's very, very interesting how things were worded and pitched and
Mhm.
carried out in this episode. So once they are kind of realizing all of that and moving forward, and the test results come in, and it turns out there is not the father. Torben, after being like mind controlled and exposed to like his greatest fear of isolation and being out on his own, which is very similar to I think it was Reith Silas in the High Republic books who
Okay.
started out wanting to just be like an archivist, a librarian of the Jedi temple on Coruscant, essentially like a Jocasta Nu.
Mm-hmm.
Until he went through everything on Starlight Beacon and with the Drengir and all of that stuff. Then something changed where he wanted to then go out and explore more and work with this new master because his master was killed. And the council's like, well, you're not ready for the trials, but we will let you pick your new master. We won't assign one to you. Like, this is your responsibility. So he actually chose a master that was known of going out to the fringes, the outer parts of the Republic and exploring more, so he could be more of like an archivist in the field versus caretaking the knowledge base. And it was cool to see those kind of similarities between the two. Didn't turn out as much that well because we know Torben went and took the bearish vow and just stopped talking to everyone and anything.
Yeah. For how long was it?
10 years? Yeah. So he runs off or speeders off, goes back to the temple. Soul's hot on his ass to keep him from doing anything stupid, and Dara's losing her shit.
Yeah, it's like, I can't control any of these fuckers.
Which I feel like if Indara really wanted to, she could have just like stopped Torben.
Yeah.
But again, it's semantics, it's splitting hairs. Yes, the Eagles could have just flown Frodo to Mount Doom, blah, 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 blah. Shut up, storytelling.
Yes.
So they both spin off, or speed off. They get there, they just bolt up, scale the side of the cliff again, run in, and then this was really cool seeing the witches come out to meet them, and still Mother Anaseo holding up her responsibility, even though it was like a conflict of interest, one of those like save face, better for the coven. These are coming into the coven. I have to protect the coven. Even though within the coven meeting, it was, I choose to be a mother. So there was a lot of conflict within her, and then her last words were telling Soul, "Oh, she chose you." There's that
choice again.
She wants to be a Jedi, essentially, like make her a Jedi as my dying wish. Like, she did what she had to do, and as a result, she paid the price for it. So killed her. She was gonna go all and ghosty foo on Torben, and Soul's like, not my guy.
Not today.
And pokey. Yeah. She got jackied.
Yeah.
1/3 jackied.
Right in the gut.
And I've already seen stuff where it's like, so when do lightsabers kill? When do they not? The Grand Inquisitor survived. Well, 3 stomachs, cauterizing the wound. Third sister survived
twice.
I can't remember exactly where she got stabbed in the torso.
Yeah.
Qui-Gon got knifed right through the spinal cord, so that's why he died. Also, medical science, another 50 years in the future for Sabine. So think of stab wounds now and how we treat them versus stab wounds 50 years ago, and the mortality rate on that one. Also, Darth Maul got cut in half and survived, so shut the all the way fuck up.
Don't bring that up.
Yeah, again, pick and choose your battles. Yeah. What is actually worth dying on here that you're going to live and die by these episodes and this entire fandom?
At the end of the day, most of that stuff doesn't even matter,
It's a semantic, like,
yeah.
Sabine could have just gotten knocked out or whatever, like, but they did it for effect, for adrenaline, like,
right.
Yes.
And it has to have some cost to it. Some thought that, oh shit, this person has been stabbed, as opposed to, oh shit, this person's been knocked out. They'll be fine. They might have a concussion.
Yeah.
But if somebody gets stabbed, okay, well, they're gonna have some robot parts put in.
Like
done. Vinny Chan.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, so coming in with all of that stuff, and she was stabbed in like smoke ethereal form.
Yeah.
So debate amongst yourselves on
Who
that
knows? Who
one.
knows?
But it was cool, even though they were like still disagreeing, they're still Jedi, she's still a Coven. Like they still went back to their roots. Like disagree with your family and give your sibling a hard time. But if anyone else comes into my house and makes fun of it, it's where a good fucking luck. So I did think that that was also a added perk and bonus of character development that we don't often see. We saw that a little bit between Obi-Wan and Anakin, but it was still more prevalent and noticeable here.
Yes.
Without, again, being too in your face on it. It just happened. They didn't call too much to it. Of like, no, he's a Jedi. You don't hurt my Jedi Padawan. Right. Like, all that stuff.
Right. And I think also at that point, he thought May was Osha. So
you caught that too.
Yeah. He was still trying to protect.
You caught that too. So when she came running out, I stopped and I was like, is that... So did he... Was he bonding with the wrong one? Like I paused for a little bit right there, so I'm glad you said that.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, interesting because right now at this point, Osha's
locked in the room,
burning.
Yeah,
almost.
Or close to it.
So then once Soul kills Mother Anaseo, the other sisters start firing their bows and arrows at
Torben, and he's blocking them.
He's
parry to the left, parry to the right, baby.
He got some skills with his saber, while the other vice assistant head, but I guess now like interim head of the Coven, Zabrak,
Mother Coral.
Yes, Mother Coral, is now going after Soul, and they both have that moment of like, why won't you attack me? And the witches are completely the aggressors here.
Yep.
While Soul even eyes over at Torben of like, don't. And they're all on defense because they're still believers of we're not going to come in, we're not going to be the disruptors, we're the keepers of the peace, not soldiers.
Even though they clearly did all of the above.
They were still very much on that defensive side. They weren't trying to escalate anything. They needed to do what was right and what essentially was right by their religion. But again, only in the Magneto, I've been at the mercy of people just following orders. I'll leave that comparison as is when we get to the Jedi. But that fight was cool too, and seeing Mother Coral like actually pushing him back. He was definitely using the Force to not get completely dumped on his ass. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, all the witches disappear. What the hell's going on? Yeah. What was going through your head during that first part of the fight scene?
So I enjoyed what was happening. I liked obviously Torben with the saber, blocking everything, which was actually really cool. And then, like you said, Master Saul and Mother Coral, they did their little. It was basically a dance. They were just doing a little dance. So that was cool as well. And then when we got to the part where the witches disappear, and it's like, all right, what's going on?
Yeah.
And then she's all like, oh, you shouldn't have bought them. Because I'm going to take control of them.
Like, I fortified my mind.
Some shit going on here, boy.
Have you, though, fortified your... Have you?
Yes, and then, so when they took control of Kanaka, and he comes in, wrecking shop.
Wookiees are powerful MFers.
I think that is what everybody's been waiting for. There's a lot of hurt feelings when he just got murked right off the top in episode 4 there. So a lot of people were waiting for this, and I think it was well worth the wait to see him coming in.
Absolutely.
You could tell he was under control of someone else because he didn't have any kind of. He was just full brute force swinging,
It looked
trying to murder. There was no grace to it. There was no.
because I'm me. I picked up, and again, y'all will probably correct me if I'm wrong. He had the same lightsaber style and swipes that George Lucas's son did in Episode 3
Oh my
when he
gosh.
was protecting Bail Organa. When he comes in and kind of uses his whole torso to build up momentum. It's almost like a golf swing where you use the torso to come down and then you strike up at the end. I don't know what form that is, but it was
In bad form.
oh no, it's great form. Using your entire body momentum versus your wrist and parrying. Oh no, I think that's the best form out there. But to each his own. To each is incorrect. You're entitled to your wrong opinion. But yeah, that was really cool just seeing both of them, and Soul with that flip as the saber came under. That was the good Star Wars choreography the fans have been pining after, and boy did we get that in Episode 5 and Episode 7. Just beautifully well done. And then we finally saw how Torben got the scars. Kalnaka dumped his ass over a table, force pulled him by the face, clawed his face, and then
Shoved his head into.
curb stomped him into a wall.
Yeah.
But then you also see just how powerful and strong Torben is, being able to, having your skull crushed by a Wookiee while at the same time, essentially like a roided out Wookiee, trying to slice you, but then you also have the angle on your own saber. Like, there's a lot going on, and just as a Jedi Padawan, well done, very powerful. Wish we could have seen more of him. So that's all going. Kalnak also kind of murked Soul, knocked him out a little bit. They did have that thing where I think, what was it? Did he hit his hand or the hilt that knocked his lightsaber out?
Yeah. Definitely hit I think he hit his hand, his wrist maybe. Like they do on all the shows. Oh!
Yeah. So at one point, both of them are fighting with the lightsaber. One of them loses it, deactivates the other, loses the second one. And this motherfucker thinks he's going to go hand to hand with his roided out Wookiee.
I mean, when you get adrenaline going, you think you can do anything. Liquid courage.
Yeah. Eventually, he's about to get marked, and then Indara comes in. We got the Carrie-Ann Moss, almost Trinity, run, step, jump, and take him to the ground.
Straight down.
What in the hell was that?
That move?
Force move of, redirecting and lobotomizing a coven of witches by proxy.
Yeah, it almost seemed like. Well, I think they were just knocked unconscious. I don't think she fully killed them. I think they were just knocked unconscious, and then of course they couldn't get out from the fire, so that's how they ended up all dying. At least I hope she didn't kill them all.
But I thought she killed them. Because then you also see Osha screaming like, "Mom, get up!" or Osha, don't look when Soul's taking him. And also reflexively, even if you're knocked out, if there's a fire in your house, that's why you wake up, because you're inhaling and your body, your subconscious kicks you awake. That's how our nervous system works.
How the nervous system works.
So I think she did kill them, which
Wow.
in part, that's what made this cover up so big. Virgins in the Force. One of them wanted to come, one of them didn't. They needed both. The children were older. Torben's emotionally driven actions, which is against a lot of emotional damage in this episode. Torben's emotional reactions, Soul's emotional reactions, which, as we know, are very slippery slopes.
Yep.
According to the Jedi.
According to the Jedi.
A massacre of a coven of witches that they previously knew nothing about.
They didn't know anything about all
Torben even mentions, are they Night Sisters? Well, Night Sisters don't take children. Like, you had that playing, like, are they the Night Sisters of Dathomir? Like, all of that. And marking essentially an entire planet's worth of sentient life as far as they're concerned.
Right.
So it's
a lot.
Arguably genocide.
It's a strong possibility.
So I can see where there's some PTSD and psychological trauma and guilt driven that could push Torben into all of that was his fault, directly or otherwise. He was too rash, it pushed him, and it broke him psychologically. So I could see now why he would be pushed to take the bearish vow. Kalnaka thought he was strong enough. He wasn't. He let himself fall victim to the witch's spell and attacked his own teammates, his kinsmen, which is why he isolated himself. And Dara went out to post on Ueda. Yeah. Ueda's. And Dara took that post to kind of separate herself, be a marshal, but not so far separated from everyone. And Soul took on a new Padawan after Osha, possibly as a redemption factor to try to do better. You can see how the actions that have been set and established have since developed these characters from this episode. So I do really think that this episode was absolutely needed. I wonder if they could have combined this with 3 and cut out some of the stuff in 3. Like, I think it would have been from Soul's point of view, see some of it from the Coven's point of view. Like,
I think it would have been a little bit difficult in that now, if we look back to what's happening in, for lack of a better term, present tense, and present, I think what we saw last night in episode 7 was Saul telling the story to May. So I think that's why it was
done
the
way
split. Yeah, that's why it was done that way. So what we saw essentially was the Coven's point of view, the twins' point of view, from what they know. Yeah. And then what we saw last night, of course, is Saul's point of view as he's telling the story to May, as she's, bound and locked up on
the ship.
Yeah.
And finishing this episode when they're talking on the ship with Osha unconscious on the bed, the same bed that May is now unconscious on. And Dara and Saul kind of got into it a little bit.
It was interesting to see their reactions to each other. And
it's like mom and dad are fighting in front of the kids.
Yeah. Which might also be another thing that pushed Torben over. Like, oh man, my master was over here.
Fuck this up.
Yeah.
I'm real fucking this up.
Yeah. So it was interesting to see that. And then to see Indara come to the realization that, all right, this is what we're going to do.
Well, there was a big part when their hands and wrists were locked with each other. There was a clear moment where they were both heated, and then you saw both of their faces relax and go to sorrow and go to guilt. Like, the two of them had that, like, what are we doing? What did we do? Yeah. How do we get out of this? Once Torben asks, what do we tell the council? And that was just great acting on
I agree.
on those two. You saw it and you felt the guilt. Essentially, the adrenaline's out of their system. Oh, we fucked up.
Yeah, we were just trying to find the virgins, and we stumbled upon some other shit, and some people are dead. This is fucked up.
Yeah.
Oh, and we got to tell what happened. So what the hell are we gonna do?
Yeah.
I got it. Blame it all on the dead girl. Keep it moving.
Blame it on the dead girl. And I mean, nothing of that truth they said was a lie. May started the fire,
and people died,
and everyone was dead.
Yep. We'll just leave out all the fine points and details.
Don't ask, don't tell. Right. Republic style. So yes, I think it was really cool. The entire episode. I love the lightsaber stuff. I love the character development. I love the context that it gave us. The last few episodes, my enthusiasm for the show as a whole has grown.
Okay.
Now that I'm further along in the book and I'm starting to see the whole picture, my enthusiasm is growing and I'm liking the show more. Do I think it should have roped me in sooner? Yes. Do I think the episode should have been longer? Absolutely.
Hell yeah.
Should it have been a 10-episode season instead of 8? Yes. That reframes a lot of the episodes for why the pacing was a little bit off. But...
And I think, unfortunately, or I won't say unfortunately because we don't know, this could play into the ending next week. If we get... So we have one episode to kind of try and tie all this up, not knowing if there's going to be a season 2,
correct, we don't,
or anything like that. But let's just assume that there's not. This is a one-off. It's one shot. If we get another 30-minute episode to try to wrap up,
that's going to be rough.
It's not. I can't see it happening unless they speed through it. And once again, comparison is the thief of joy. But other Disney Plus shows we've seen that don't stick the landing.
Yeah, it's going to be hard.
It would be heartbreaking.
Because you're going to need to know, like, what all Vernestra's doing and how they're going to judge Soul and all of that stuff. And Soul's going to have to tell the council what it is. And it better not be one of those, like...
Or is he even going to tell the council?
Yeah, or it better not be one of those, like... And we close the doors. Doors open. Soul walks out. Doors close. Well, I told the council, and I'm no longer a Jedi. Like, no. That's the meat and potatoes that we want to see. We want to see that tribunal.
Yeah, and we still have to deal with Kamir and perhaps Osha. We still don't know where that's going. So I could see it going into this last episode and it not being a total answer to everything and not be a closure, and then look forward to a season 2 or something like that.
And there is a way to do that, but I do think there are a lot of things to close out season 1 that need to get done in order to build off of a potential cliffhanger from season 2. If Soul's going to talk to the council, that needs to happen in season 1. That shouldn't go to season 2. We could see Osha and May facing off. May becomes redeemed, has a blue lightsaber. Osha becomes corrupted, has a red lightsaber. And the cliffhanger are the two blades igniting. And then that's the cliffhanger of season 1. And season 2 picks up at that battle, Kamir and Osha versus Soul and May. Like, I could see that happening, because then you kick off season 2 with a bang of a massive lightsaber fight.
I think the only thing, and again, we're getting into speculation nation here. The only thing is where does it go from here? Clearly, this season or this story is about what happened on Brenda, right? the other aspect of that is how does Camille fit into what happened on Brendog?
Yes.
And where do we go from there? Now, is that the spinoff which goes into season 2? I think what has to happen though, in order for all the people who are always talking about breaking canon and so forth, is that the council can't know about this.
Yeah.
Unless they, once we get to the episode 1 and
I mean,
or I'm sorry, the prequels.
unless
Once we get to the prequels, they're all on the everyone on the council knows this shit, but is also
unless they categorize him as not a Sith, because again, that is a big thing that I've been harping on since that Kiadi Mundi thing is he does not consider himself a Sith. Vader says he's a Sith. Plagueis says he's a Sith. Palpatine said he's a Sith. Maul says he's a Sith. Like, Sith Lords are arrogant SOBs who want you to know they are a Sith.
Yes.
Kamir is not like, you would call me one, but like...
I mean,
I would. Like... And his character doesn't seem hungry for power. He seems hungry for knowledge and his own attunement into the Force.
He wants to
he also wants to build his own order.
Yeah.
One thing we haven't...
A splinter organization, kind of like they mentioned before. So,
well, one thing we haven't seen yet or talked about yet is he a gray? He had the red or the black clothing on, then went to the white clothing. He doesn't call himself Sith, but he was a Jedi, so he knows the teachings. Did he see the dogmatic and hubris views of the Jedi, and then he left? Like, is he trying to build a gray order and doesn't want the damn Jedi pissing all over his parade? Like, so that would be an interesting take, and I think if they did that, leave Brendok in season 1, and then make that the crux of season 2. I think that would be awesome.
I could see it.
But you're right. We do still need to see how Kamir fits into this.
Right.
Otherwise, like, there's no real motivation for having him as a character.
Right.
May could have survived and been like, I'm angry, I want revenge, all on her own.
Right. Of course, she would have had to have, I guess, he's there to be her trainer, but clearly she was already...
She already knew the basics, so she could build upon those skills herself.
And they could have just had Mother Coral survive and then teach that way.
Yeah.
And then not introduce Kamir at all. Again, now we're this is all headcanon.
It's speculation. Exactly. It's headcanon.
We're all over the place.
But I think it's based in legitimate questions for what's going to happen.
It's legitimate discourse.
Yeah.
To ask.
Yeah.
As we go into this last episode where we're hoping for 45 plus minutes.
Yes.
And not a 25.
How many, trying to come up with a unit of measurement for this week.
Midichlorian count. How much midichlorians? How much M count?
How many emotionally unstable Jedi would you give this episode?
I'll give it a strong 8.
Which is what you've been giving the last few episodes too.
Mm-hmm.
I find so that's very
even though I initially and it's funny because it's what I said earlier. My initial thought coming out of it last night. And as we talked earlier this morning, my initial thought was, come on, man, this is the same shit we got before. But then as you get into discussing it and you start talking
really what we just want is kick-ass lightsaber fights, and you got like 3 or 4 points.
That's it.
Like,
done.
That's all we want.
yeah, we're shallow.
Yeah.
So we'll give this one a strong 8. It wasn't my initial thought of it was the same as episode 3, which I believe both of us gave it somewhere in the 6s or something.
Oh, episode 3, no, we gave it like, you gave it like a 5.5, and I gave it like a 4.
Ah, well.
Oh no, it was not that.
We tried. So it wasn't as it wasn't on that same plane as which was my initial thought from the beginning. But again, that's the beauty of media, and that's the beauty of having someone to bounce it off of and discuss it with. Because if not, if it was just me sitting at home
Well,
on
the
the couch.
important thing is to have someone to discuss it with where you're both not just yelling into the void and seeing this ruined Star Wars. Looking at you, certain YouTubers. And that's one, again, going back to why we started this podcast, because we don't always agree. We wanted to get into that discourse a little bit, and we did.
Yeah, and that makes it fun.
Yeah, I'll just kill you later. I mean,
Oh shit!
this episode brought to you by
by him himself.
Dante's been sick.
What'd you give it?
I'd say I'd give it an 8.5.
All right.
Yeah, this is my highest rated episode so far. We saw some cool shit. We opened up the canon. We brought in more of the Legends canon at this point. It gave us the context and filler I've been wanting. Did it come a little bit too late? Maybe I'll need to sit on it with a little bit more, but I'm sure we'll do a whole Acolyte recap of the whole series. We'll do season 8 next, or episode 8 next week, and then the week after we can probably do a whole recap where we can actually start to type up notes.
Yeah, imagine that.
So, yeah.
There you have it.
8 and 8.5. Let us know what you guys think. Make sure, again, like, subscribe, follow the YouTubes, follow our Instagrams, the podcast Instagrams. I'll try to stick them generally up here as like a text thing.
Talk about in the comments.
Yeah, it'll be in the comments.
Show notes.
Threat. Make sure you rate us 5 stars, even if you don't like us. Still rate us 5 stars.
Yeah. Can't hurt.
Because let's face it, the more you rate us and the more we're on the internet, the more people who share your views that are opposite ours can yell at us.
See, it's a win-win for everyone.
And with that, for light and life, may the force be with you.